What if I told you that Pontiac built cars so revolutionary, so ahead of their time, that GM executives locked them away in secret vaults, rather than risk putting them on American roads? We're talking about machines that could have changed automotive history forever. Prototypes that made the GTO look tame, and concepts that would have left Mustang owners crying into their beer. Today, we're breaking into Pontiac's classified archives to reveal 10 legendary cars they never dared to release. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about what could have been rolling out of Detroit. Before we dive into these automotive what-ifs, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You don't want to miss our deep dives into the cars that almost changed everything. Now, let's start with a car that would have made Pontiac the king of the racetrack decades before anyone else even tried. Number 10. Pontiac Banshee X P833. Back in 1964, while Ford was busy patting themselves on the back for the Mustang, Pontiac was secretly developing something that would have made the pony car look like a gentle mare. The Banshee wasn't just another concept car. It was a fully functional prototype that could have beaten the Corvette at its own game. Picture this, a sleek, low-slung sports car with a 230 cubic inch overhead cam, 6-cylinder engine that could rev to the moon and back. This wasn't your grandfather's straight six. This was a high-tech power plant that would have embarrassed most V8s of the era. The Banshee could hit 60 miles per hour in under 6 seconds. And remember, this was 1964, when most cars took twice that long just to get out of their own way. But here's where it gets interesting. GM's top brass took one look at this beauty and panicked. They realized the Banshee would absolutely destroy Corvette sales. Why would anyone buy a fiberglass Chevy when they could get a more advanced, better-looking Pontiac for less money? So they killed it, just like that. One of the most promising sports cars in American history was strangled in its crib because it was too good. The Banshee had everything going for it. Independent rear suspension, 4-wheel disc brakes, and styling that looked like it came from the future. If Pontiac had been allowed to build it, we might be talking about the Banshee the same way we talk about the Corvette today. Number 9. Pontiac Strato. Now, if you think the Banshee was radical, wait until you hear about the Strato. This 1954 concept was so far ahead of its time that it makes modern cars look conservative. We're talking about a car with a gas turbine engine. Yes, you heard that right. A jet engine in a car, back when most Americans were still getting used to automatic transmissions. The Strato wasn't just about the power plant, though that turbine engine was something else. This thing could run on anything: gasoline, diesel, kerosene, probably moonshine if you were desperate enough. But what really set it apart was the design. This car looked like it had been beamed down from the year 2000. Sleek, aerodynamic, with a cockpit that wrapped around the driver like a fighter jet. Pontiac engineers were dead serious about this project. They built multiple prototypes and spent years testing different configurations. The turbine engine was smooth as silk and incredibly powerful. But there was one tiny problem. It would have cost more to build than most people made in a year. Plus, try explaining to your local mechanic how to fix a jet engine when it breaks down on a Sunday afternoon. GM looked at the development costs, looked at the complexity, and decided that maybe America wasn't quite ready for jet-powered family cars. They were probably right, but man, what a missed opportunity. Imagine pulling up to a drive-in restaurant in 1955 with the sound of a turbine engine winding down. You would have been the coolest cat in the parking lot. Number 8. Pontiac G8 ST. Fast forward to 2008, and Pontiac was on the verge of something special again. The G8 sedan had just launched and was finally giving American buyers a taste of what Australian muscle could do. But Pontiac had bigger plans. Much bigger. They were secretly developing the G8 ST, a pickup truck that would have redefined what it meant to haul cargo in style. This wasn't going to be some wimpy car-based truck. The G8 ST was based on the same Holden Ute platform that Australians had been enjoying for years, but with American muscle under the hood. We're talking about a 6.2-liter LS 3V8 producing over 400 horsepower in a vehicle that could tow 3,500 pounds and still run 13-second quarter miles all day long. Think about it, a pickup truck that could outrun most sports cars while still being practical enough to haul your weekend projects. The G8 ST would have been the perfect vehicle for guys who needed a truck during the week, but wanted to embarrass Mustang drivers on the weekend. The styling was aggressive, but refined, with the same muscular proportions as the G8 sedan, but with the added practicality of a pickup bed. Pontiac had even worked out the pricing. It would have slotted right between the base G8 and the GXP, making it accessible to regular working guys who wanted something special. But then, 2009 happened. The financial crisis hit, GM went bankrupt, and Pontiac got the axe. The G8 ST died along with the brand, leaving American truck buyers stuck with boring, underpowered options, while Australians continued to enjoy the Ute that could have been ours. Number 7. Pontiac Rageous. In 1997, Pontiac was desperately trying to attract younger buyers who saw the brand as their grandfather's car company. Their answer was the Rageous, a concept that looked like it had escaped from a video game and landed in the real world. This wasn't just another pretty show car, it was a fully functional prototype that could have given the Corvette a serious run for its money. The Rageous was built on a modified Firebird platform, but you'd never know it by looking at it. The body was pure aggression, low, wide, and angular, with air intakes and vents in all the right places. It looked like a stealth fighter that had been designed to dominate the streets instead of the skies. Under that radical bodywork was a supercharged 3.8-liter V6 that produced 300 horsepower. Serious power for the late 90s, especially in a car that weighed less than 3,000 pounds. The Rageous could hit 60 in under 5 seconds and had a top speed north of 150 miles per hour. More importantly, it handled like it was on rails, with a sophisticated suspension setup that could carve corners like a scalpel. Pontiac seriously considered putting the Rageous into production. They had the platform, they had the engine, and they had dealers begging for something exciting to sell. But GM's bean counters looked at the projected development costs and decided it was too risky. They were worried that a radical-looking sports car might alienate traditional Pontiac buyers. So instead of the Rageous, we got another generation of the same old Grand Am. Pontiac continued to struggle with its image problem, and younger buyers continued to shop elsewhere. If they had been brave enough to build the Rageous, Pontiac might still be around today. Number 6. Pontiac Trans Sport Concept, 1986. Long before minivans became the default choice for soccer moms, Pontiac was working on something that would have revolutionized family transportation. The 1986 Trans Sport concept wasn't just another boxy people hauler. It was a spaceship on wheels that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. This thing was radical from every angle. The body was made entirely of composite materials with smooth, flowing lines that seemed to defy physics. There were no traditional doors. Instead, the entire side of the vehicle opened up like a clamshell, giving passengers easy access to all 3 rows of seats. The windshield wrapped around the sides of the vehicle, giving the driver an almost 180-degree view of the road ahead. But the real innovation was under the skin. Pontiac engineers had developed a revolutionary all-wheel drive system that could automatically adjust power distribution based on road conditions. The suspension used advanced materials and computer-controlled damping that could adapt to different driving situations in real time. This was technology that wouldn't become common until decades later. The interior was just as futuristic as the exterior. Instead of traditional gauges, the Transport concept had a digital display that could show everything from engine parameters to navigation information. The seats were designed to be completely modular. You could remove them, rearrange them, or fold them flat to create a massive cargo area. Pontiac was serious about building this thing. They had worked out the manufacturing processes and even had a target price that would have made it competitive with traditional minivans. But when it came time to make the final decision, GM got cold feet. They were worried that American buyers weren't ready for something so radical. Instead, they gave us the production Trans Sport, which kept some of the concept's styling, but none of its innovation. Number 5. Pontiac Bonneville Special. In 1954, Pontiac was looking for a way to showcase their engineering prowess and prove that they could build more than just sensible family cars. Their answer was the Bonneville Special, a concept car that packed more innovation into one package than most manufacturers managed in an entire decade. The Bonneville Special was built around Pontiac's experimental 287 cubic inch V8, but this wasn't just any V8. This engine featured fuel injection, a technology that was so advanced that most manufacturers wouldn't adopt it for another decade. The fuel injection system was developed in partnership with Rochester and could deliver precise fuel metering that improved both power and economy. But the engine was just the beginning. The Bonneville Special featured an experimental automatic transmission with 4 forward speeds, unheard of in 1954 when most automatics had just 2 speeds. The suspension used advanced materials and geometry that provided a ride quality that wouldn't be matched by production cars for years. The styling was pure 1950s optimism, sleek, low, and loaded with chrome details that caught the light from every angle. The interior featured experimental materials and a dashboard layout that put all the important controls within easy reach of the driver. This was a car that looked like the future and had the technology to back it up. Pontiac used the Bonneville Special as a rolling test bed for technologies that would eventually make it into production cars. But they never seriously considered building it as a production model. The costs would have been astronomical, and they weren't sure there was a market for such an advanced car. Instead, they used it as a showcase piece at auto shows and engineering conferences. Looking back, the Bonneville Special represented everything that was great about 1950s American optimism. It was a car that dared to imagine what the future might look like and had the engineering chops to make it real. Number 4. Pontiac Strato Star. By 1955, Pontiac was on a roll with their concept cars, and the Strato Star was their most ambitious project yet. This wasn't just a car, it was a vision of what personal transportation might look like in the space age. Everything about the Strato Star was designed to push the boundaries of what was possible. The most obvious feature was the canopy. Instead of traditional doors and windows, the entire top of the car hinged forward to allow entry. Once inside, passengers sat in a cockpit that was more like a fighter jet than a family car. The dashboard curved around the driver, with all the controls positioned for maximum efficiency and minimum distraction. Under the radical bodywork was an equally radical power plant. Pontiac engineers had developed a new version of their turbine engine that was smaller, more efficient, and more reliable than the unit in the Stratostreak. This engine could run on multiple fuels and produced power as smoothly as an electric motor. More importantly, it was compact enough to fit in a relatively small car without compromising passenger space. The Strato Star also featured experimental safety equipment that was decades ahead of its time. The seats were designed to protect occupants in a crash. The steering column was collapsible, and the entire passenger compartment was built like a safety cage. This was 1955, remember? Most cars of the era were basically death traps on wheels. Pontiac seriously considered putting some of the Strato Star's innovations into production. The safety equipment was particularly promising, and several features eventually made it into production cars. But the complete package was just too advanced and too expensive for the mid-1950s market. American buyers wanted bigger, more powerful cars, not efficient, high-tech transportation pods. Number 3. Pontiac Club de Mer. In 1956, Pontiac decided to build the ultimate expression of American automotive excess. The Club de Mer wasn't just a concept car. It was a statement that Pontiac could build something as beautiful and sophisticated as anything coming out of Europe, but with distinctly American character. The Club de Mer was pure sculpture on wheels. Every line, every curve, every detail was crafted to create a sense of motion, even when the car was standing still. The body was hand-formed from aluminum and featured proportions that would make Italian designers weep with envy. This was a car that looked fast, just sitting in the driveway. But the Club de Mer wasn't just about looks. Under that gorgeous bodywork was a fuel-injected V8 that produced more power per cubic inch than anything else Pontiac was building. The suspension was fully independent at all four corners, a rarity in American cars of the era, and the brakes were four-wheel discs, another advanced feature that wouldn't become common for years. The interior was just as impressive as the exterior. The seats were upholstered in the finest leather. The dashboard was crafted from real wood and polished metal, and every control was positioned exactly where it needed to be. This was a car that felt as good as it looked. Pontiac built the Club de Mer as a showcase piece, but there were serious discussions about putting it into limited production. The company had the engineering expertise and the manufacturing capability to build it. The problem was the price. A production Club de Mer would have cost more than most people's houses. In the end, Pontiac decided that the American market wasn't ready for a $50,000 sports car, especially one from a brand that was known for practical family transportation. The Club de Mer remained a one-off, but it proved that Pontiac could build world-class automobiles when they put their minds to it. Number 2. Pontiac Bonneville X-400. By 1964, Pontiac was riding high on the success of the GTO, but they weren't content to rest on their laurels. The Bonneville X-400 was their vision of what the ultimate American GT car should be. A machine that could cruise the interstate at 100 miles per hour all day long while carrying 4 passengers in absolute comfort. The X400 was built on a shortened Bonneville platform, but everything else was new. The body was sleek and aerodynamic, with a drag coefficient that wouldn't be matched by production cars for another decade. The proportions were perfect: long hood, short deck, and a roofline that flowed like liquid mercury from front to back. Under the hood was Pontiac's most advanced engine yet, a 421 cubic inch V8 with experimental fuel injection and variable valve timing. This power plant could produce over 400 horsepower while still delivering reasonable fuel economy on the highway. More importantly, it was smooth and refined, with none of the rough, idle, and lumpy power delivery that characterized most high-performance engines of the era. The X400's interior was a masterpiece of design and engineering. The seats were designed to provide support during high-speed driving while remaining comfortable on long trips. The dashboard featured a full complement of gauges and controls, all positioned within easy reach of the driver. Air conditioning, power steering, and power brakes were standard, luxury features that were still optional on most cars. Pontiac seriously considered putting the X400 into production as a halo car that would showcase the brand's engineering capabilities. They had worked out the manufacturing processes and even had a preliminary price structure. But GM's corporate politics intervened. Chevrolet was worried that the X400 would steal sales from the Corvette, and Cadillac was concerned about competition from within the GM family. So the X400 remained a prototype, and Pontiac lost another opportunity to build something truly special. If they had been allowed to produce it, the X400 might have established Pontiac as America's premier performance brand decades before the import invasion changed everything. Number 1. Pontiac G8 Concept Unreleased Variant. Our number 1 spot goes to a car that almost nobody knows about, a secret variant of the G8 that would have been Pontiac's ultimate statement. While the production G8 was already an impressive machine, Pontiac engineers were working on something even more special behind closed doors. This wasn't just another trim level, it was a complete reimagining of what an American muscle sedan could be. The engineers had taken the basic G8 platform and turned it into a 500 horsepower monster that could run with the best supercars while still carrying 4 adults and their luggage. The heart of this beast was a supercharged 6.2-liter LS 9V8, the same engine that powered the Corvette ZR1. But Pontiac's engineers didn't stop there. They developed a sophisticated all-wheel drive system that could put all that power to the ground without drama. The suspension was completely reworked with adaptive dampers and anti-roll bars that could adjust their stiffness in real time. The exterior looked subtly different from a regular G8, but those small changes made a huge impact. Wider fenders accommodated massive wheels and tires, while functional air intakes and outlets helped cool the supercharged engine and upgraded brakes. The rear spoiler wasn't just for show, it actually provided downforce at high speeds. Inside, the cabin was fitted with racing-inspired seats, a roll cage, and a full complement of performance gauges. This was a car that was equally at home on the street or the track, capable of running 11-second quarter miles while still being comfortable enough for daily driving. Pontiac had actually built several prototypes and was in the final stages of development when GM pulled the plug on the entire brand. Engineers who worked on the project say it was the most capable car they had ever developed, a machine that would have redefined what American performance sedans could achieve. If Pontiac had survived long enough to build this ultimate G8, it might have changed the entire trajectory of the brand. Instead, it remains one of the greatest what-ifs in automotive history. There you have it. 10 incredible Pontiac prototypes that never made it to production. Each one represents a missed opportunity, a moment when corporate politics or financial concerns prevented something truly special from reaching American driveways. These cars prove that Pontiac's engineers were capable of building world-class automobiles that could compete with anything from Detroit or anywhere else. They had the talent, the technology, and the vision to create automotive legends. What they didn't have was the corporate support to turn their dreams into reality. It makes you wonder what the automotive landscape might look like today if Pontiac had been allowed to build even half of these incredible machines. Would we still be talking about the brand as a relic of the past? Or would Pontiac still be building cars that make our hearts race? What do you think? Which of these lost Pontiacs would you most like to see in your driveway? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the cars that almost changed everything. Until next time, keep dreaming about what could have been.